My name is Clara Vinton, 34 years old, and I'm a photographer who's carved a life out of capturing moments others overlook. But last month, a single text message shattered the fragile hope I'd clung to for years. It was the same excuse my parents sent every summer, as predictable as the Virginia heat. "Darling, we're so sorry, but there's just not enough room for you at the Blue Ridge Mountains retreat this year." Those words stung, but what came next burned like wildfire. Hours later, I discovered they'd invited over 100 people, family, distant cousins, even strangers tied to my father's banking empire. I was the only one left out, again. Before starting this story, if you are listening from USA, please leave a comment with number 9. And if you are from another country, please leave the name of your lovely country. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to listen to more stories. I sat in my Richmond apartment, the phone trembling in my grip, its screen glowing with my mother's message. My chest tightened, a knot of rage and betrayal twisting inside me. Not enough room. The lie was so blatant it felt like a slap. I'd spent years swallowing their dismissals, but this was different. This was deliberate. My parents, Harold and Evelyn Vinton, had orchestrated a grand spectacle, and I wasn't even worth a seat at their table. The anger surged, hot and unrelenting, as I pictured them laughing over wine with their chosen guests, oblivious to the daughter they'd discarded. Needing answers, I opened Instagram, my fingers moving almost on instinct. That's when I saw a post from my brother Theo, his smug caption boasting about the epic family gathering to come. I zoomed in on the photo, a printed itinerary for the retreat, its details crisp despite the blur. Over 100 confirmed guests. My eyes scanned the names my 5 siblings, their spouses, their children, cousins I hadn't seen in decades, my mother's book club friends, even my father's old college mentor. Everyone but me. My breath caught, and I felt the room spin. They hadn't just excluded me, they'd erased me. I scrolled further, each post a fresh wound. Theo's wife shared a video of the retreat's sprawling mountain estate, its stone facade glowing under the sunset. Another post revealed they'd rented 2 neighboring cabins to accommodate the overflow. 2 cabins. The excuse of not enough room crumbled into dust, exposing the truth they didn't want me there. My hands shook as I set the phone down, tears scalding my cheeks. I wanted to scream, to hurl the phone against the wall, but instead, I sank to the floor, hugging my knees. Why was I never enough for them? The Blue Ridge retreat wasn't just a vacation, it was our family's sacred tradition, a legacy my grandparents had built with love. Every summer, we'd gather at their mountain estate, its pine-scented air and misty peaks a haven of joy. But after they passed, my parents turned it into something else, a showcase for their status, a networking gala masquerading as family time. And I, the artist who dared to defy their blueprint for success, became the outcast year after year. I'd hoped for change, but this betrayal cut deeper than ever. I stood, wiping my face, the anger now a steady flame. I wasn't a child begging for scraps of their approval anymore. I was Clara Vinton, a woman who'd built a thriving career, whose photographs hung in galleries across Virginia. Yet my own family saw me as nothing. The realization fueled a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. This year, I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't cry in silence. I'd show them exactly what they'd cast aside. Before I go on, let me ask, have you ever felt pushed out by the people who should love you most? Drop a comment below, share where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever been made to feel invisible. Trust me, you'll want to hear what I did next. The sting of my parents' betrayal still pulsed through me, a wound reopened by their latest lie. As I sat in my Richmond apartment, the silence heavy with rage, memories of the Blue Ridge Mountains retreat flooded back memories that once brought warmth but now fueled a bitter resentment. That sprawling estate, nestled among Virginia's misty peaks, was more than a vacation home. It was a sanctuary my grandparents, Clara and Henry Langston, had woven into our family's soul. Yet, after their deaths. It became a stage for my parents' favoritism, where I, the dreamer who chose photography over their approved paths, was cast as the outsider. The pain of being sidelined wasn't new, it had festered for years, each slight a fresh cut I could no longer ignore. As a child, the Blue Ridge retreat was my haven. I'd wake to the scent of pine and race my siblings to the estate's wooden porch, our laughter mingling with the morning mist. My eldest brother, Theo, would lead us on treasure hunts through the sprawling grounds, his booming voice echoing off the hills. My sisters, Nora and Elise, would braid wildflowers with Grandma Clara in the open kitchen, their giggles filling the air. The twins, Julian and Marcus, forever mischievous, would scale the tallest oaks, daring each other to climb higher. Little Celeste, the youngest, trailed Grandpa Henry, her tiny hand clutching his as he taught her the names of every bird. And me, I was Grandpa's shadow. My camera, a gift from him at 8 years old, always in hand, capturing the fleeting beauty of those summers. Grandpa Henry saw my gift before anyone else. "You have an artist's eye, Clara," he'd say, his voice warm as we wandered the trails, my lens trained on the way sunlight danced through the leaves. He'd set up a makeshift darkroom in the basement, teaching me to develop film, praising my instinct for framing a moment. When I declared at 16 that I'd pursue photography, not banking or medicine like my siblings, Grandma Clara hugged me tight. "Follow your heart," she whispered. But my parents, Harold and Evelyn, saw my choice as rebellion. Artists starve. My father barked at dinner, his fork clattering against the plate. My mother, ever his echo, nodded. "You're wasting your potential." Their disapproval only grew after my grandparents passed away, just months apart. When I was 19, their deaths left a void, and the retreat changed. What was once a celebration of family became a showcase for my father's banking empire. My parents filled the estate with clients, colleagues, and socialites, their laughter drowning out the joy of our childhood. My siblings thrived in this new world. Theo, now a banker, was the heir apparent, living in my father's shadow. Nora, married to a surgeon, mirrored our mother's polished charm. Julian and Marcus, lawyers at a firm my father endorsed, basked in his praise. Elise, a doctor, and Celeste, a teacher married to a financial planner, fit neatly into their mold. But I, with my gallery shows and freelance contracts, was the odd one out, my work dismissed as a hobby. The slights piled up, each one sharpening my resentment. At 25, my first major exhibition drew crowds, but my parents skipped it for Julian's law firm gala. "We had obligations," my mother said, her voice cold. At a family Christmas when I was 28, my siblings unwrapped thoughtful gifts, engraved pens, designer bags while I received a generic bookstore voucher. "You're hard to shop for." My father shrugged. Family photos always placed me at the edge, my face half hidden, as if I could be cropped out without notice. Each moment fueled a quiet fury, a sense of being erased by the people who should have cherished me. By 30, I'd built a career I loved, my photographs featured in magazines and galleries. Yet my parents' indifference gnawed at me. The Blue Ridge retreat, once a symbol of love, now stood for everything I'd lost: their respect, their pride, my place in the family. As I stared out my apartment window, the city lights blurring through unshed tears, I realized this pain wasn't just about one text. It was a lifetime of being told I didn't belong. The anger burned brighter, not just at them, but at myself for hoping they'd change. I wouldn't let their rejection define me anymore. The rage from my parents' betrayal coursed through me like a live wire, electrifying every nerve. I stood in my Richmond apartment, the city's skyline a blur beyond the window, my phone still warm from the Instagram post that exposed their lie. Over 100 people invited to the Blue Ridge Mountains retreat, 2 cabins rented to house them all, yet I, their daughter, was deemed unworthy of a place. The audacity of their excuse, "not enough room," ignited a fury I could no longer contain. I paced the hardwood floor, my footsteps echoing in the quiet, each step fueling a resolve to break free from their rejection. This wasn't just another slight. It was a declaration of my irrelevance, and I refused to let it stand. I needed clarity, someone to anchor me amidst the storm. I dialed Ivy, my closest friend since our days at Virginia Commonwealth University's art school. Her voice, steady and warm, answered on the first ring. "Clara, what's wrong? You sound like you're about to explode." I poured out the truth, the text from my mother, Theo's post, the guest list that mocked my exclusion. They invited everyone. "Ivy," I said, my voice cracking. "Cousins I haven't seen in 20 years, my father's golf buddies, but not me. They lied to my face." Ivy's silence was heavy. Then she spoke, her words sharp. "That's not neglect, Clara. That's cruelty. They're punishing you for being you." Her words hit like a thunderbolt, stripping away the excuses I'd made for years, punishing me for choosing photography over their sterile world of finance and law, for daring to live authentically. The realization fanned the flames of my anger, but Ivy's next words sowed a seed of defiance. "You don't need their table," she said. "Build your own. Show them what they're missing." I hung up, her advice swirling in my mind, but doubt crept in. Could I really challenge their legacy? The thought was daunting, yet the alternative silence, submission, was unbearable. Desperate for guidance, I video-called Professor Lena Caldwell, my mentor from art school, now a renowned curator in Charlottesville. Her silver hair framed a face etched with wisdom as she listened to my story. "They've invited over 100 people," I said, my voice trembling with indignation. "They rented extra cabins. Lena, it's not about space, it's about me not fitting their mold." Lena leaned closer, her eyes piercing through the screen. "Clara, pain is a powerful catalyst. Don't waste it on tears. Create something so magnificent it forces them to see you." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me from despair to determination. "What would your grandparents want?" she asked. I pictured Grandpa Henry, his pride in my photographs, and knew the answer. They'd want me to reclaim my place, not with anger, but with brilliance. That night, I sat at my desk, the glow of my laptop casting shadows across the room. I scoured websites for luxury properties near Blue Ridge, my heart racing with each click. Then I found it Willow Creek Manor, a breathtaking estate 15 minutes from my family's retreat. 6 bedrooms, a glass-walled great room overlooking the mountains, a private meadow for gatherings. It was perfect. The rental price made my breath catch, nearly depleting the savings I'd set aside for a studio expansion. My hands hovered over the keyboard, trembling with the weight of the decision. Could I risk everything to prove a point? But this wasn't just defiance, it was survival. I transferred the deposit, my fingers shaking, a surge of exhilaration drowning out the fear. The next day, I met Rachel, a client-turned-friend who ran a Richmond event planning firm. For coffee, over steaming lattes, I shared my vision of Visionary Haven Retreat, a celebration of creativity for friends and colleagues who valued me. "I'm inviting 20 people," I said, my voice firm despite the butterflies in my stomach. "Artists, designers, people who see me." Rachel's eyes lit up. "This is genius. Clara, let me help." We brainstormed venues, activities, photography hikes, painting workshops, starlit bonfires, and by dusk, the plan took shape. I'd create a retreat that echoed my grandparents' legacy, not my parents' charade. But first, I needed to confront the lie head on. I called Nora, my sister, knowing she'd be awake with her newborn. "Did you know I wasn't invited to Blue Ridge?" I demanded, my voice sharp. A pause, then her weak reply. "Mom said you were too busy with your photos." I laughed, a bitter sound. "Busy. They invited over 100 people. Nora, they rented cabins. Stop defending them. Her silence was damning. "You could have spoken up," I said, my anger boiling over. "But you didn't." I hung up. My resolve hardened. The visionary Haven retreat would be my answer, a beacon of my worth they couldn't ignore. The visionary Haven retreat was my rebellion, a defiant stroke of creation born from the ashes of my family's rejection. As I stood on the porch of Willow Creek Manor, the Blue Ridge Mountains stretching before me like a canvas of mist and pine, I felt a surge of pride tinged with nervous anticipation. The estate's glass walls gleamed under the Virginia sun, its meadow alive with the laughter of 20 guests, artists, designers, and friends who saw me for who I was. Yet, beneath the thrill of bringing my vision to life, a storm of challenges loomed, testing my resolve. And when my parents arrived, uninvited, the confrontation I dreaded became the crucible where my anger would either consume me or forge my triumph. The retreat began with a burst of energy. Ivy led a sunrise photography hike, her voice guiding guests through the dew-kissed trails. Rachel's curated painting workshops filled the patio with vibrant colors, while starlit bonfires crackled with stories and music. My sister Elise, who'd chosen my event over the family's, pulled me aside on the first evening, her eyes shining. "Clara, this is magical," she whispered. "It's everything our grandparents dreamed of." Her words fueled me, but the weight of responsibility pressed hard. I'd poured my savings into this, and every detail, food, activities, ambiance had to be flawless to prove my worth. Disaster struck on the second day. The catering company called, their voice clipped with apology. "We're overbooked. We can't service your event." My heart plummeted. 20 guests expecting gourmet meals for 5 days, and now no chef? I stood in the manor's kitchen, gripping the counter, fury rising at the betrayal. How could they do this? I wanted to scream, to curse their incompetence, but panic clawed at my throat. Ivy found me, her calm presence a lifeline. "We'll fix this," she said firmly. She connected me with Julianne, a local chef who'd trained at Le Cordon Bleu. By evening, Julianne arrived, her menus elevating my vision with farm-fresh dishes that left guests raving. What could have broken me became a triumph, my anger channeled into action. The retreat's success grew, each day a testament to my resilience. Guests posted photos on Instagram, their captions praising the manor's beauty and my creativity. The posts reached my family, and by the third day, my phone buzzed with messages. Theo texted, "Your retreat looks insane. What's this about?" Nora wrote, "Mom's upset Elise is there. What's going on?" I ignored them, my focus on the guests who'd chosen me. But on the fourth afternoon, as we returned from a meadow yoga session, a sleek black SUV pulled into the driveway. My parents, Harold and Evelyn, stepped out, their faces a mask of controlled anger. My stomach twisted, but I squared my shoulders, ready to face the storm. I met them on the lawn, the manor's warmth at my back. "What is this?" Clara, my father demanded, his voice cutting like a blade. "You're throwing a rival event." My mother's eyes narrowed. "We told you there wasn't room at our retreat." The lie reignited my fury, and I stepped forward, my voice steady but laced with years of pent-up rage. "No room. You invited over 100 people. Harold, you rented 2 cabins. This was never about space, it was about erasing me." My father's jaw tightened, but I didn't stop. "You've dismissed my work, my life, for decades. You chose everyone but your own daughter." Evelyn's face flushed. "We thought you were too busy with your little hobby," she said, her words dripping with disdain. The word hobby snapped something inside me. "My hobby," I shouted, my voice echoing across the lawn. "My photographs hang in galleries. My clients pay thousands for my work. But you've never cared enough to see it." I pointed to the manor, where guests laughed through the windows. "These people value me. They made space for me when you wouldn't." My father looked past me, his eyes scanning the estate, the undeniable proof of my success. For the first time, he faltered, his arrogance cracking. "You could have talked to us," Evelyn said, her voice softer but unconvincing. "Would it have mattered?" I asked, my tone icy. "You've excluded me for years. I'm done begging for your approval." The silence was heavy, their expressions a mix of shock and shame. I turned to leave, but my father's voice stopped me. "This is impressive," he admitted, the words grudging but significant. I nodded, my anger still simmering, and walked back to my guests, my chosen family, who waited with unwavering support. That evening, Julianne's dinner roasted quail and wildflower salads drew gasps of delight. As we dined under string lights, I felt a quiet victory. I'd turned rejection into creation, proving my worth not to them, but to myself. The confrontation with my parents had been raw, but it forced them to see me, even if just a glimpse. The retreat wasn't over, but I knew I'd already won something they could never take away. The visionary Haven retreat had transformed my pain into a tapestry of triumph, its final days glowing with the warmth of connection. As I stood in Willow Creek Manor's great room, the Blue Ridge Mountains framing the twilight beyond the glass, I felt a fragile peace. My confrontation with my parents had forced a crack in their facade, but the wound of their rejection still ached. Now, as the retreat neared its end, an unexpected shift began, not a full healing, but a tentative bridge toward understanding. Yet, even as my family reached out, my resolve to carve my own path grew stronger, rooted in the certainty of my worth. On the last evening, I invited my parents, Harold and Evelyn, to join our closing dinner, a gesture not of surrender, but of confidence. They arrived, their faces taut with unease, stepping into a world they'd never acknowledged. The long table on the manor's deck sparkled under string lights, laden with Julianne's feast of herb-crusted lamb and summer berries. My 20 guests, their voices a symphony of laughter, welcomed them with polite curiosity. Elise, seated beside me, squeezed my hand, her presence a quiet affirmation. As Harold surveyed the scene, his usual authority faltered, replaced by a flicker of awe. Evelyn, clutching her purse, met my gaze, her eyes betraying a rare vulnerability. During the meal, Ivy shared how my photography inspired her latest exhibit, and Rachel praised my vision for the retreat. Their words, unprompted, painted a portrait of the daughter my parents had ignored. Harold cleared his throat, his voice low. "Clara, we've underestimated you," he said, the admission heavy with unpracticed sincerity. "We were wrong to exclude you." Evelyn nodded, her voice soft. "We didn't understand your world. We're sorry." The apologies, though belated, stirred a complex tide of emotions relief, lingering resentment, cautious hope. I nodded, my throat tight. "Thank you," I said, my tone measured. "But I've built something here. I won't shrink to fit your expectations." The next morning, as guests packed, Aunt Vivian, my grandmother's spirited sister, arrived unannounced. At 82, her silver curls and sharp eyes radiated defiance. She'd skipped the family retreat. Drawn by my Instagram posts, over coffee on the porch, she spoke with fierce clarity. "Your grandparents, Clara and Henry, would be proud," she said, her hand gripping mine. "They saw your light. Your parents dimmed it, but you've reclaimed it." Her words soothed an old ache, validating my journey. Then, with a glint of mischief, she revealed her plan. "I've spoken to the family trust's lawyer. As the last Langston sibling, I've requested 1 week each summer at the Blue Ridge estate for your retreat." I froze, tears pricking my eyes. "Vivian, that's—" I began, but words failed me. She smiled. "It's what Clara and Henry wanted, a place for creativity, not control." The gesture was monumental, a restoration of my grandparents' legacy. Later, I called Harold to discuss it. To my surprise, he agreed. "Your retreat brought something real back to the estate," he said, his voice gruff. "We won't stand in the way. The concession wasn't love, but it was progress, a crack widening in their rigid world. My siblings' reactions varied, a mirror of our fractured bonds. Elise and I grew closer, our coffee dates a new ritual. Theo sent a hesitant text, "I didn't realize how much we hurt you. I'm sorry." His words, though small, held weight. Julian, ever loyal to our parents, stayed silent. His absence a quiet rebuke. Nora defended them, her messages sharp. "You didn't have to humiliate Mom and Dad." Marcus and Celeste wavered, unsure how to bridge the gap. I accepted their responses without bitterness, knowing change would take time. My anger, once a roaring flame, had settled into embers still hot, but no longer consuming me. As I drove back to Richmond, the mountains fading in my rear view, I reflected on the retreat's ripple effects. It had forged a community, rekindled my grandparents' spirit, and forced my family to see me anew. I wasn't naive, decades of favoritism wouldn't vanish overnight, but I'd claimed my space, not by burning bridges, but by building my own. The visionary Haven retreat would return, stronger, a beacon for those who, like me, had been told they didn't belong. As I sit in my Richmond apartment, the Blue Ridge Mountains now a memory etched in my heart, I reflect on the visionary Haven retreat not just an event, but a turning point. The pain of my family's rejection, once a suffocating weight, has transformed into a beacon of resilience. I've learned that when others deny you a place, you don't beg, you build your own. This truth, forged in the fire of betrayal, is my gift to you, the women who felt unseen by those who should cherish you most. My journey isn't over, but it's mine to shape, and I'm ready to light the way for others. The retreat will return next summer, hosted at my grandparents' Blue Ridge estate, a sacred space reclaimed for creativity and connection. I'm already sketching plans, more workshops, deeper bonds, a haven for those who've been told they don't belong. This isn't about erasing my family's wrongs, it's about creating something greater than their limitations. My parents' apologies and Aunt Vivian's bold gesture opened a door, but I walk through it on my terms, no longer seeking their validation. I've found my worth, not in their eyes, but in the community I've built and the art I create. To every woman watching, know this: your value doesn't hinge on others' approval. If your family, friends, or society push you aside, don't shrink, rise. Create your own space, your own legacy, and let it shine so brightly it drowns out their doubts. This story is for you, the ones who've cried in silence, who've been overlooked for being true to yourselves. I see you, and you're enough. This story is a work of fiction created for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to attack or defame any individual, family, or organization. Any resemblance to real persons or events is purely coincidental. If this story moved you or sparked a thought, please let us know by commenting below. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions help us create more stories that inspire and entertain. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching and being part of our community.